Today, I'm going to show you guys how to recover your motorcycle seat. And this is so easy to do yourself. All you need is a yard of fabric, some staples, a staple gun, and a scissors. So in this, we'll work on many different styles of motorcycle seats, whether you have a long banana style seat like we do, or if you have two smaller seats, different shapes. And there's a couple reasons you may want to do this. You know, if you have an older motorcycle seat that's ripped up or torn, obviously you'd want to recover that. Or you can do this to change the look and the color of your motorcycle seat, and that is the reason that I'm doing this today. So here is my new fabric. We are going gold on this baby. Now you don't have to do something quite as exotic, but the process is the same regardless. So without further ado, let's rip into it. And my name's Michael, welcome to the channel. So first I'll just give you a look at the back of this motorcycle seat. So you can see our piece of leather on it just has staples that run around the whole perimeter. Now, whenever I'm recovering a motorcycle seat because I'm changing the color, if I have a cover on that seat that's not ripped or torn, it's not damaged in any way, I always like to leave the factory covers on and then we will just cover over. So at any point, if I ever want to take off that gold upholstery that we're putting on, all I have to do is take my seat off, flip it over, and pull out my staples. But we will be leaving all of the factory staples that this seat came with. So what you'll want to do here is get your new piece of fabric and just lay it on your seat. And sometimes these fabrics, these leather upholsteries and stuff, they can have a texture to them that you might want it a certain direction. And shoot, I've even done like snake and alligator skin ones. But the piece that we're using is all kind of the same. There's not one direction that it needs to go. So the first thing I do with my fabric on the seat, I'll flip it right on over. And we'll want to make sure that we're fairly centered here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I've learned the best way to start these is to tack down both ends. If your seat is kind of a long shape, we're gonna tack both ends, the front and the back. That just works easy to start them that way, and then you start at one end and we'll stretch it around and be stapling as we go. Just little bits at a time. That is the key to getting this right, and we'll get this seat perfect. That leather on there will be taut. We will not have a wrinkle, a crease, nothing in it if we just take our time and work slow. The size of staples that I always like to use for reupholstering these seats, a 1/4 inch 6mm T50 staples. Those aren't too deep, they're deep enough. So the first thing I'll do here is just stretch one end kind of up and over, and then I want it to be somewhat flat here. I want my staples to get a really good bite. And so I'm just gonna start with, let's see how many staples. They got about 3 or 4 in the ends. So I'm just gonna do a little line of about 4 staples right across there. And then I kind of stretch it out to the side as I get a few more in. Maybe one more for good measure. And then you'll always want to be careful with your staple gun. You know, you don't want to drag it across that leather or rip it in any way. So I always just push straight down, very firm, click my staple in, pull straight back up. All right, so with one end tacked on there, now we're gonna go to the other end. Kind of make sure that this is laying perfectly straight, exactly where I want it. Now that seat, it kind of had that banana shape to it, right? So when I stretch this leather taut at the other end, you know, the bottom of the seat is sitting somewhere down in there. That's perfect. I want this to be taut, and then we will stretch this down to the seat when we start working on the sides. All right, so then I got a little strip of staples started at that other end there. So now I think I'm just gonna start on the back side here, and I'll just be stretching this over on each side, and I kind of do maybe 2, 3, 4 staples, and then I go to the other side and I just work my way up that seat. And then once you start stretching this upholstery over, once you get enough of it here and you get a few staples in, then you can take your scissors and cut some of this extra off so you don't have this just bunched up. All right, we're to the halfway point here. You can see this looks hilarious. Oh my goodness. But I'll turn it around here so you can kind of see what we've been doing. Now, I don't do the final trim on our leather, on our upholstery until we're finished, but I do cut the bulk of it out of my way just so it's easier to work. And then you can see our line of staples is just kind of going around on that seat. So now that we're about halfway, we're kind of to the valley in that seat. So I'm really going to be stretching this to each side, maybe just 2 staples at a time as I'm going along here, but we'll get it all taut and on there, right? Alright, so we've all got it buttoned up except for one end. So as I started getting closer to that end, I took out my initial staples that we had tacked the front and the rear with, just so I can kind of stretch that and get that taut as I get to a few more corners and curves. So really the only spot I've got left is just right up here at the top. There's 3 or 4 inches along there, but this is the point where I'll go in with my scissors and I'll take off 99% of all the bulk of this. And then I'm just cutting maybe a ½ inch behind my line of staples there, so there will be a little bit of excess. All right, and we are all done. So I'll kind of give you a close look here. We have no creases, no lines, nothing in our finished product there. And so if we look at the bottom of it, it really just follows the lines here that the factory cover did. So the way that I did the tails, this is kind of hard to see with it being gold, but there's just 2 folds there, and so you just barely see those 2 lines getting tucked into the tail. You probably can't even see it, but that keeps the tail looking really slick. And then up on the front, since usually this part is wider, so you're kind of doing this pull and tuck method. So you can kind of see on this, I pull it in from a bunch of different ways. So I pull a piece, tuck it, pull a piece, tuck it, and so on and so forth. But yeah, finished product. Very, very nice. How many staples did I use? I don't know, a couple hundred. And then for the leather, for the upholstery, so I always just get them on eBay or Amazon. I go on there and I just look up vinyl leather thaw upholstery. I mean, you could do real leather, you could do fake leathers, you could do crazy colors, textures, graphic stuff as well. So there is literally a world of options for you, but knowing how to do it is the first step. And I first learned how to do this from my mother, and we gotta give credit where credit is due, so thank you, Mom. I'm doing good work. So comment with any questions, otherwise like the video if this helped you out. Subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time.